Welcome back to A Powerless Mage Presents. Today we are undertaking a deep dive into some of the most fundamental concepts that shape how we view ourselves. We're talking about pride, shame, acceptance, and humility. And if you're listening today, chances are you might be struggling with a persistent feeling of dissatisfaction. You know, that nagging sense that you're not quite measuring up or that the solutions you've been trying are just, well, they're just scratching the surface.
Exactly. We're aiming to go straight to the core mechanics of personal well-being today. Because that elusive satisfaction you might be seeking, it often feels unreachable for a very specific reason.
Which is?
Society has sold us a completely false narrative about how these four powerful forces actually work. We've been taught to seek the wrong things, to value the wrong feelings.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. This is for those of you who are looking for real tools, not just surface-level motivation. We want to give you ideas that can fundamentally restructure how you see the world, and maybe more importantly, how you see yourself.
The goal here is genuine, stable well-being, not a temporary high.
And to get us started, you mentioned we have to introduce a central, very counterintuitive insight from our source material, an idea that well, it turns everything we think we know on its head.
It does. It's an idea that's been popularized in some fiction, actually, through the wisdom of a character named Uncle Iroh from Avatar, The Last Airbender. But its roots are much, much deeper.
Okay, so what is it? Let's unpack this, because you're right, it changes the game entirely.
The insight is this. Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
Whoa. Okay, let's sit with that. Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. For most of us, myself included, we treat them as complete opposites. You know, if you succeed at something, you feel proud. If you fail, you feel ashamed. They're two ends of a spectrum.
That's the conventional wisdom. But this suggests a much darker, much closer connection. It means the very act of building up pride, you know, that exaggerated, puffed-up image of yourself, is also, at the very same time, digging the foundation for a future, an often very violent sense of shame.
So chasing pride is. It's like you're just setting yourself up for a bigger fall.
You're building the scaffold from which you will eventually fall. The higher you build the pride, the more devastating the crash of shame will be when reality inevitably hits.
That immediately makes me think, though, we use the word pride in so many positive ways.
Right.
You think about pride parades or being proud of your kids or your community. How does that fit in?
That's a fantastic question, and it highlights the problem with language. Our sources point out the beautiful irony there. We use the word pride to celebrate the acceptance of one's authentic self.
Right.
But based on this deeper, more functional definition, calling it the parade of acceptance would be far more accurate.
A lot less catchy, though.
A lot less catchy, yes. But it shows how our social definitions have become diluted. Our mission here is to look past that, to get to the real operational meaning of these terms in your day-to-day life.
So we're redefining the toolkit. We want to help you stop building your identity on that shaky, exaggerated ground of pride, and instead help you cultivate a well-being that's rooted in, well, in reality.
Exactly. And to do that, to get that kind of clarity, we have to lay a bit of groundwork that most people honestly just skip over. We have to talk about reality itself.
Right. Before we can even get to pride or shame, we need to know what we're comparing them to.
Precisely. To understand the relationship between these four concepts, we first have to establish two foundational ideas: reality and what we'll call the authentic self. They sound simple, maybe even a little abstract, but they are the bedrock. Everything else is built on them.
Okay, so let's start with the big one. What is reality in this context? Let's keep it simple and practical.
Reality is, quite simply, what is? It's the state of things, completely independent of our ideas, our beliefs, our hopes, or our perceptions about it.
So no negotiating.
No negotiating. If your bank account has $10 in it, that is the reality. It doesn't matter if you believe you should have $1 million. If you have a specific physical limitation, that is the reality, no matter how much you wish it weren't true.
And confronting that raw, unedited reality, it's often really uncomfortable, which is probably why we spend so much energy avoiding it.
It is. The source material describes reality as inherently complex, often unpleasant, and definitely uncomfortable. And this isn't meant to be pessimistic, it's just a description of life. If life were simple and easy, we wouldn't resist it so much.
But there's another side to it, right?
There is, and this is the critical duality. While reality is challenging, aligning yourself with it is also incredibly satisfying. There's this deep, genuine satisfaction that comes from it. We can call it resonance.
So resonance, I like that word. It's that feeling of of internal peace you get when you finally stop fighting what's true.
That's it, exactly.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
when your internal world and the external world click into place.
Okay, so if aligning with reality is the goal and the source of satisfaction, why do we dedicate so much of our lives, so much energy to fighting it? Why do we build these elaborate mental worlds to avoid it?
Because from a very young age, we've adopted a set of false criteria for living. Ideas from the external world about how we should be, who we should be, and we use two major blockers to fight reality, what the sources call conditionings and the imaginary.
All right, let's spend some real time on these two, because for anyone listening who's feeling that dissatisfaction, understanding where the pain is coming from, that has to be the first step.
Absolutely. Let's start with conditionings. These are basically the unconscious rules we live by, ways of thinking and acting that we absorb from our environment, our parents, our teachers, society, the media.
And we just adopted them without ever really questioning if they were true for us.
Exactly. They become our automatic programming. A classic conditioning might be, you must always be productive to be worthy. Or showing vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Or even, conflict is always bad and must be avoided.
These rules then fuel the second concept, the imaginary.
Yes. The imaginary is the fictional character of you that lives in your head. It's that idealized, polished, perfectly successful, perfectly confident, perfectly whatever version of yourself that you desperately believe you should be.
It's not based on who you are right now in reality. It's based on who you wish you were, based on those conditionings.
Precisely. And the problem, the source of the daily pain, is when the imaginary, that ideal, self-sets the impossible standards, and the conditionings dictate the painful consequences for failing to meet them. It creates this vicious feedback loop of dissatisfaction.
Can you walk us through a really practical, relatable example of how this loop generates pain every single day?
Of course. Let's take someone who grew up with a strong conditioning that being intelligent means knowing the answer immediately. They learned this in school, maybe from a demanding teacher.
Okay, I think a lot of people can relate to that one.
So the conditioning is smart people know things instantly. Now, the imaginary steps in and builds a character. The perfect version of me is someone who is brilliant, witty, and never looks foolish. I am the smart one.
Right, that's their identity.
Now, put this person in a work meeting. Their boss asks a question they don't know the answer to. What happens?
Panic.
Instant panic. Because the reality is, I don't have this specific piece of information right now. But that reality is a direct assault on the image of the smart one. The conditioning screams, you're failing, you look stupid, you're an imposter.
And instead of just saying, I don't know, let me find out and get back to you, which is a perfectly reasonable, realistic response.
They might deflect or bluff or get defensive. They feel a wave of shame and anxiety. And this doesn't just happen in big moments. It happens every single time they encounter something they don't know. The gap between their actual normal human state of not knowing everything and the idealized image from the imaginary generates this constant low-level suffering.
So you're constantly living in fear of being exposed as not matching up to this fictional character you've invented.
You're spending all your energy defending a ghost, and that makes the cost incredibly clear. You can't experience the genuine satisfaction of learning, of being curious, of just being in reality because you're too busy comparing yourself to a lie.
The antidote to all this, then, has to be what you called the authentic self.
Yes, the authentic self is simply the person you are when you're aligned with reality, when you're free from the tyranny of those conditionings and the impossible standards of the imaginary.
It's who you are when you stop trying to be who you're supposed to be.
And that alignment with what truly is. That's the only place genuine, stable well-being comes from. It's the source of all internal resonance.
Okay, so if reality is the target we're aiming for, and our imaginary self is the blocker causing all the pain, we have to start by figuring out what we're actually disappointed in. Is it reality, or is it the lie?
That's the work. That is the entire work.
So we want to ask you, the listener, to really think about this for a moment. This is our first reflective question. Think about the last time you felt truly disappointed in yourself. Was that disappointment based on reality, meaning you genuinely failed to meet your actual commitments or values? Or was it based on a should-be idea derived from your conditionings or the imaginary?
And take a real moment with that. Be honest. If the disappointment is because you didn't live up to a fictional character, then you're beating yourself up over a fantasy. If you can feel that distinction, even for a second, you are already on the path toward your authentic self.
And that path, that movement toward reality, brings us right to the first major concept we need to redefine for positive action: acceptance.
Acceptance is where the journey of alignment truly begins. But we have to be extremely clear about what it is and what it isn't.
Right. Because I think for a lot of people, acceptance sounds like giving up. It sounds passive.
It sounds like a resignation, like lying on the couch and saying, well, I guess I'm just lazy, so I'll never do anything.
Yeah.
That's not acceptance. That's apathy.
So it's a critical distinction. The source material defines acceptance as a positive action. It's an active, conscious process of integrating one or more truths about your authentic self into your mental image.
It's like you're updating your internal map. It's the declaration of this right now is true about me.
And these truths can be about anything, right? Limitations, strengths, preferences.
Anything. For example, the active acceptance of I am an introvert and I need significant alone time to recharge. That's not a moral failing. It's a piece of data. Or accepting I am genuinely terrible at managing finances, so I need to seek help or use tools.
Or on the positive side, I have a real natural talent for teaching, or I am deeply curious about how things work.
Let's use a more robust example to really show the difference between that positive active acceptance and passive resignation. Imagine a very passionate musician who develops arthritis in their hands and can no longer play their instrument at a professional level.
Okay, that's a tough reality to face.
Very. Now, passive resignation would sound like this. My life is over. I am no longer a musician. I have no purpose. I am defeated. Their entire identity was tied to the conditioning of I am a performer.
They collapse entirely because that one image is gone.
Exactly. But active acceptance is a positive action. It sounds more like my hands, in reality, can no longer perform at the level they once could. I accept this physical limitation. That's the first step.
Acknowledging what is.
Then the second step, however, my authentic self is still deeply connected to music. My love for composition and theory is still there. I will now channel this energy into composing for other artists or teaching music theory.
So the person actively integrates the limitation without abandoning their core self. They find a new path that is still aligned with who they are.
And because we are always changing, our bodies, our interests, our circumstances, this process of acceptance is described as constant and endless. You don't just accept yourself once and you're done. You are constantly updating that internal map to match the new terrain of your life.
And the feeling you get from that, it's genuine. It's not a fleeting high. It's that resonance you talked about, a feeling of being solid because you're finally standing on real ground, not wishful thinking.
Yes. But here, this is where the danger starts to creep in.
Ah, the turn.
The turn. That feeling of well-being generated by acceptance is so real, so satisfying, that our brain wants more of it. It's a healthy feeling, but like many pleasurable things, it can become addictive.
And if we're not careful, we slide into a trap.
We do. The danger arises when the pleasure of discovering who we are becomes too important. We stop being satisfied with the simple, honest truth. So instead of just integrating, I am a good public speaker, we start to exaggerate it.
We add a little extra flair to the story.
We make it bigger, more definitive, more heroic than it actually is. We stop saying, I'm a good speaker, and we start insisting, I am the only person in this company who can give a decent presentation.
And that exaggeration.
That's the birth of pride.
That is the precise moment of birth. It's when a true self-discovery gets corrupted and edited to serve the ego. So this is our new functional definition of pride. It's not a feeling of accomplishment. It is, and let's be very clear on this, attachment to an image of ourselves that we protect at all costs.
It is a defense mechanism built entirely around an exaggeration, or in some cases an outright lie.
And that attachment, that constant need to defend the constructed image, that's what creates that. You called it a perverse pleasure, a sense of exaltation of being above it all.
It feels good for a moment because you've successfully tricked yourself into believing the lie is real. You've reinforced the imaginary character.
Let's really dig into the mechanics of this because it's so often subtle. For many, this kind of pride shows up as intellectual arrogance. A perfect example. The reality, the acceptance, might be, I've read a lot and I'm moderately knowledgeable in a few specific fields. It's an honest assessment.
Right.
The exaggerated image, the pride, demands something much bigger. I must be seen as the expert in all discussions. I can never be wrong. My opinion is fact.
And then what happens when that's challenged?
The moment someone politely says, actually, I read a study that contradicts that, the person with pride doesn't engage with new information. They can't.
Yeah.
They have to engage with the threat to the image.
So their voice gets louder, they start arguing about semantics, they shift the goalposts.
Anything to avoid admitting, oh, I might have been wrong about that, that extreme defensiveness.
Yeah.
That's the telltale sign of pride. They are protecting the image of the unassailable expert at all costs.
I think a lot of people listening might struggle with this. They'll think, but I've worked hard for my success. Isn't it okay to feel good about it? Is all of that just exaggeration? How do we draw the line? Where does healthy recognition end and this toxic protective pride begin?
It's a crucial question. Healthy recognition, which is acceptance, is generally internal and verifiable. It's a quiet satisfaction. I worked hard on this project and the result is good. I feel competent. It brings that feeling of resonance.
It doesn't need an audience.
It doesn't need an audience. Pride, on the other hand, almost always requires external validation and is characterized by intense defensiveness. Pride needs everyone else in the room to agree with your edited, exaggerated version of reality. If you feel deeply personally offended when someone offers constructive criticism on your work, you're probably not defending the work itself. You're defending the exaggerated image of the perfect worker who never fails.
And this brings us to what might be the most counterintuitive part of this whole definition. We almost always associate pride with superiority, with feeling better than. But you're arguing that the exaggerated image we defend doesn't even have to be positive.
This is absolutely critical to understand. The source material is very clear that the victim mentality is one of the most powerful and insidious forms of pride.
Okay, we need to dedicate some serious time to this because this is going to be a major sticking point for people who feel genuinely stuck in their lives.
Let's be very careful here. If you construct and then defend a false image of yourself as, say, uniquely incapable or exceptionally vulnerable, or as someone who deserves endless compassion and a permanent exemption from responsibility, that is an image.
An image you're attached to.
An image you are attached to and are defending at all costs. You are protecting the identity of being the victim.
But wait a minute. When you define it that way, aren't you risking invalidating people who have been through real trauma and genuinely need help? How do we possibly differentiate between that false, proud image and someone who is just seeking legitimate support?
That is the razor's edge. And the distinction comes down to reality versus attachment to an identity. Seeking support for a real-time situation is based on reality. I'm grieving a profound loss right now, and I need support to get through it. That is acceptance of a current, temporary reality.
It's a state, not a trait.
Beautifully put. It's a state, not a trait. Pride enters when it becomes a permanent identity. I am a victim. My entire life is defined by helplessness and trauma. It becomes the central pillar of who you are. Now, if someone offers a genuine solution, a path to healing, a job opportunity that fosters independence, a therapy that empowers them, the person attached to victim pride might react violently.
Why? Wouldn't they want the help?
Because the help, the solution, threatens their core identity. They have invested so much in defending the image of the helpless one that a path to not being helpless is terrifying. It's an attack on who they believe they are. So they might reject the solution specifically to protect the self-image of helplessness.
So the core mechanic is identical, whether the image is one of superiority or victimization. The defining factor of pride is always defending a false image against reality.
Whether you're building a fortress around a lie that says, I'm a god, or a lie that says, I'm uniquely broken, you're still just building a fortress around a lie.
And the consequence of living inside that fortress, no matter what it's made of, is always the same.
Disconnection. Pride creates an immediate and pervasive disconnection. First, from reality, because you're living in a fantasy, and second, from the people around you, because genuine connection requires authenticity, and you're offering them an edited character.
This disconnection can become extreme, can't it? We see it in history, in psychology. People who get so lost in their pride that they stop seeing themselves as fully human.
Yes, they can become gods in their own mind, exempt from the rules and consequences that apply to mere mortals. Or they can become subhumans, convinced they are so uniquely flawed that they deserve special pity and are exempt from the responsibilities of being a functioning adult.
This is why it has historically been called a poison of the mind. It leads to this profound isolation and eventually a kind of dehumanization.
And it operates on a spectrum, of course. For most of us, it isn't about becoming a god. It's the little things. It's the small exaggeration on a resume. It's the need to always be the one giving advice in a friendship, but never being able to receive it. But the end result is the same, just on a smaller scale. You isolate yourself from the honest feedback that could lead you back to reality.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, pride is just this exhausting, continuous war you're waging against the truth.
A war you can never, ever win.
Okay, so this is where we ask you to take a really honest look in the mirror. This might be the hardest question we ask all day.
Reflective question 2. Where in your life might you be defending an image of yourself, either superior or victimized, that forces you to disconnect from the honest truth of your current situation? Are you exhaustingly maintaining a perfect facade, or are you aggressively defending the idea that you are uniquely broken?
That's a tough one. For me, I know in the past I defended the image of being effortlessly capable. I'd work incredibly hard in private, but in public, I'd pretend everything came easily to me.
A very common one.
And the second someone suggested I was struggling or that something looked difficult for me, I would feel this deep, immediate threat. That feeling, that defensiveness, that's the signal. That's how you know you're defending the lie, not the reality.
That's an excellent point. And once that proud identity, that fortress is built,
Yeah.
it's really only a matter of time before reality comes crashing into it. And that inevitable violent collision, that is what we call shame.
So let's get the mechanics of shame really clear. Based on this model, shame isn't an external judgment from others, it's an internal event.
It is a violent internal conflict between the image your pride constructed and the undeniable reality of your actions.
Okay, let's use your example from before. You've built the image, the pride, that you are the ultimate professional. Your career is your identity. You're always prepared, always on time, always flawless. All of your self-worth is tied up in this untouchable facade. Then one day, you make a huge, very public mistake. Maybe you miss a critical deadline on a major project, an act that directly and violently contradicts your constructed image of perfection.
Shame is that explosion. It is the clash. It's the moment the protected false idea, I am the ultimate professional, is vaporized by the actual reality. I just failed in a very significant way.
And it hurts so much precisely because it forces you to see that the image wasn't real.
It is the raw, painful denial of the fictional character we created for ourselves. It's that terrifying, gut-wrenching realization that your entire identity, your fortress, is built on sand, and the tide just came rushing in.
So when that happens, when that violent shame hits, you arrive at a crossroads. The pain is so intense, and what you do in that moment determines your entire path forward. You have two choices.
Two choices leading to two very different outcomes. The first choice is the most common. It's the immediate, emotional, self-protective reaction. Irrational reinforcement.
You double down.
You double down on the lie. The pain of being exposed motivates you to shield the false idea even more fiercely. You might blame your team. You might blame the client for changing the brief. You might argue the deadline was unreasonable. You will do anything except admit the failure.
You sacrifice reality to save the image.
You'll destroy relationships, even your own reputation, just to protect the fragile image of the ultimate professional. You retreat deeper into the fortress of pride. And this is how the cycle perpetuates itself. You feel shame, which reinforces the need to hide behind pride, which just guarantees a bigger, more painful collision with reality next time.
A downward spiral, but there's another choice.
There is. The harder choice, but the only one that leads out of the cycle. You can choose to resume acceptance. You use that painful moment of exposure not as a defeat, but as a data point.
You use it to readjust your internal map.
Yes, you face the pain and you admit, I made a serious error. I am not perfect. I am a flawed human who sometimes fails. My job performance is not the entirety of my value.
And that second choice, that is the path toward the antidote. It's the path to humility.
Humility is acceptance applied specifically to correct a false image you've created, or to prevent one from forming in the first place.
Can you clarify the distinction between acceptance and humility a bit more? They sound similar.
They are actions on the same spectrum of truth. Think of it this way. Acceptance is about integrating a new truth you just discovered about yourself, like finding a hidden talent. Humility is about actively correcting a lie you were telling about yourself. It's about denying the false image.
So it's the surgical process of removing the exaggerations and lies that pride built.
Exactly. Let's use a simple example. Let's say you've always believed you are above petty office politics. You defend this image of yourself as being mature and focused. Then one day you catch yourself red-handed spending a full hour gossiping about a colleague.
The reality clashes with the image.
Right. Now, humility isn't about beating yourself up and saying, I'm a terrible person. That's just another form of pride, the worst person. Humility is just the honest correction. I was wrong about myself. I am not above petty politics. When I feel insecure or bored, I participate in it. I need to be honest about that flaw in myself.
It's just admitting that you're more complex, more flawed, and less perfect than you were pretending to be.
And our source material is so emphatic on this point. Humility is not about making ourselves less, is not self-deprecation. It is about making ourselves more real. is the ultimate act of emotional and intellectual honesty.
This clarity completely reframes our social language. When we accomplish something difficult, we say, I'm so proud of myself. But based on these new functional definitions, that good feeling we're experiencing isn't actually protective pride.
Not at all. That's right. If you finish a marathon, that genuine feeling of satisfaction you have isn't pride. It's the resonance of acceptance. It's the alignment between your belief in your capability and the new reality of having completed it.
And if you use that achievement to finally admit that you were terrified at the starting line and didn't think you could do it.
That's the satisfying truth of humility.
Uh-huh.
You corrected the false image of being fearless. So we don't need to stop using the word proud in casual conversation, but you must understand for your own well-being that the feeling you're actually chasing is the feeling of aligning with reality, not the feeling of defending an exaggeration.
So humility is the lesson that the pain of shame is trying to teach us. It transforms shame from a crisis into an opportunity for growth.
It turns an enemy into a teacher. So we want to challenge you now to look back at your own painful moments. Not as failures, but as moments when truth was being delivered to your doorstep, even if it was delivered harshly.
Reflective question 3. When have you recently experienced shame, and did you choose to reinforce the false image, to double down on pride? Or did you choose to admit the truth about yourself and exercise humility? And what was the outcome of that choice? Did you feel the exhaustion of fighting reality or the resonance of becoming more real?
Now that we have these new definitions for the 4 concepts, and we understand how they interact, the challenge really shifts from the theoretical to the practical. It becomes about self-observation and actively choosing reality over illusion every single day.
This is where the theory has to meet the road in our daily lives. We have to start questioning the things that give us that feeling of protective pride. Our source material lists some common and sometimes loaded examples.
Things like being intensely patriotic, or being known in your community as the Good Samaritan, or being a deeply committed activist or the resident spiritual guide in your friend group.
And to be clear, these are not inherently bad things at all, but the feeling we get from them needs to be carefully examined.
You have to ask the hard question, is this feeling of affirmation I'm getting a sign of acceptance? Is it a quiet, genuine resonance because this action truly aligns with my authentic self?
Or is this feeling being generated by an exaggerated image I've built? Am I spending all my weekends volunteering because I genuinely love giving my time, or because I'm addicted to the image of being seen as the selfless humanitarian?
And the distinction can be incredibly subtle. The test is always what happens when the image is challenged. If you're serving the community and someone criticizes your methods, does that criticism lead to thoughtful self-correction? Or does it trigger immediate defensiveness and anger?
That anger is the signal. That's pride defending the image. The answer is going to be deeply personal for everyone, but just having the tool to spot the difference is vital for moving toward honesty.
And the most essential tool for this constant correction is self-observation. You have to become a quiet, non-judgmental witness to your own internal reactions, especially those reactions tied to shame and defensiveness. When you feel that tightness in your chest after being criticized, that's your cue. That's the alarm bell telling you your fortress is under attack.
We have to be really honest about how difficult this is, though. This isn't easy work. Self-observation and letting go of pride are terrifying because these images are so deeply tied to our sense of identity.
Yes, our sources talk about this. If you have spent your entire adult life believing you are a failure, or conversely that you are superior, confronting that image feels, on a primal level, like you are dying.
Because in a way, a part of you is dying, the false self.
And the ego will fight tooth and nail to preserve the comfortable lie, no matter how much pain that lie is causing you. This brings up a striking point from the source material about the high cost of doing nothing, especially for those attached to a victim identity.
You're saying many people, paradoxically, prefer the pain of chronic shame.
It sounds strange, but yes, it's a twisted form of psychological certainty. If my core identity is I am incapable, then the chronic shame I feel from constantly falling short. Well, it's painful, but it confirms my identity. It proves that I am who I believe I am. It maintains the stability of the destructive lie.
It's like a prisoner who chooses the predictable, painful reality of their cell over the frightening uncertainty of freedom.
That's a perfect analogy. They choose the chronic shame of the cell because the world outside would require them to admit, I am not defined by this cage. But the real cost, the higher cost, is living a life completely disconnected from reality, alienated from other people, and becoming gradually, terrifyingly alone.
That isolation, which is based entirely on defending a lie, that is the true dehumanization. You become trapped in a cage of your own making, a cage that confirms your misery but prevents you from ever reaching the genuine satisfaction that reality offers.
So the path forward, the path to the authentic self and genuine well-being, begins with a single, simple decision. We have to stop defending the false images.
It starts with understanding that shame is inevitable. As long as you are a human being who is trying new things, you will misstep. Reality will tap you on the shoulder and let you know your map has an error.
But humility transforms that inevitability. Humility changes shame from an enemy that forces you back into your fortress into a teacher that invites you to step outside and redraw your map more accurately.
Every single time you catch yourself exaggerating a strength, or minimizing a weakness, or telling a story about yourself that's not quite true, whether it's a story of greatness or one of failure, that is a moment of choice.
You can reinforce the illusion and sink deeper into the isolated lie. Right. Or you can tell the truth, however uncomfortable, and in doing so, become more real. The true power is in that immediate choice.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, the goal isn't to be perfect overnight. It's not about never feeling pride or shame again.
Not at all. The goal is consistency. It's about consistently choosing truth. We must consistently choose reality over the comforting but ultimately destructive illusion of pride. That constant choice is the only path to sustainable freedom.
So we ask you to take one final deep breath and look at the image you're holding on to so tightly today.
Our final reflective question. Consider your own identity today. What false image of yourself are you currently defending that, if abandoned, might open the door to greater honesty and connection with others? What truth is your shame trying to teach you?
Let's do a quick wrap-up of this journey. Today, we redefined 4 concepts that are absolutely essential to our emotional well-being. We defined acceptance as the positive action of integrating true aspects of yourself into your mental image.
We defined pride as the protective exaggeration and the deep attachment to a false identity.
We defined shame as that painful, violent collision between the false image and reality.
And finally, we defined humility as the ongoing choice to correct that image, to deny the lie, and to make yourself more real.
The dissatisfaction you might be feeling isn't necessarily a sign that your life is failing. It might just be a sign that your life and your ideas about your life are out of alignment.
And by choosing humility, by choosing reality over and over again, you choose the path where genuine, lasting satisfaction is not only possible, but waiting for you.
Don't simply take our word for it. Put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
And if you found some clarity or practical tools in this deep dive, we invite you to share your ideas, your thoughts, and your experiences in the comment section. Please like it if you enjoyed it or it was useful to you, and subscribe to learn more about similar topics. Remember, the power is yours.